What's up, everybody? I am going to be going over tonight one of the requests from the last show, and that was the fallen angels. And so I've got a ton of text to read tonight. Sorry if it's loud in the background. I have a fan and my air conditioning on. It's super hot. So we're going to be going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Like 12 different texts tonight. But first one that I wanted to cover, just because I think it lends a lot of insight into the topic of the fallen angels, is this book right here. And it just goes over, like, hey Joe, it just goes over, like, I don't know, it just goes over a lot of different things that, like, you wouldn't think would be in a book like this, because it's not necessarily like it's almost like it's unbiased. Like, it might even be from a Christian perspective, but it might be from a Christian perspective, but the way that it's very I can't think of, like, the word. It's kind of like, when you read it, it's just informational, but then, like, you're like, whoa, like, this is, like, pretty heavy that a book like this can be, like, have this information that I've been saying all along. It's, like, weird to read it from somebody else's point of view. So just so you know, I have a ton of text to read, so some of them might be out of order, so I'm going to read stuff, and then I might have to go, like, oh, remember that I read that a second ago? That's what I was talking about. So I didn't have time. I was working like crazy this week, so I didn't have time to, like, put it in chronological order of how I wanted to read it, but I just noticed this on the back of the book, because we're not just going to talk about fallen angels, but we're going to talk about regular angels as well, and we're also going to read text from the Lord himself, just to go over some things. But I'm just going to read random stuff tonight. It says, Satan was called the adversary, and meet him in all his playful, lusty disguises, including Saint Nick. Song lyrics, lush tapestries, gorgeous paintings, ancient tablets, eyewitness accounts throughout history of close encounters with the good, the bad, and mysterious. Even guest appearances by Latter-day Angels from films and comic books enrich this treasure trove with charts, diagrams, and stunning black and white and color drawings. Reproductions throughout this glorious celebration of comprehensive survey will fascinate, entertain, provoke, inform, delight all of us who sense the angelic presence in our life. So, one second for me. So this book covers, like, angels and their sightings throughout history, also mythology, and it also goes into, like, modern day stuff, like Superman, talks about Batman and stuff like that. Super amazing book. If you get the chance to check it out. But I mean, like stuff like this is just, like, unbelievable, like, that people have drawn things like this throughout time. Just incredible, you know what I mean? But sorry, I'm, like, in the super packed space right now. So let's see. So this is a picture of, like, Satan in the underworld, and this is what I always pictured when Jesus goes down to the underworld and defeats Satan and death. That's what it looked like. Like, in my mind, that's what it looked like to me. Like Satan, like, on, like, a crappy throne, darkness, and, like, just demons everywhere in the darkness. But so this part was intriguing in the book, and I'm gonna get to the beginning, which is, like, tells you, like, the basis for tonight's show. But this is, like, the way that they originally describe the heavens in Jewish literature. And I want you to look at this and realize what this is. This is, like, basically, like, the earth would be here, flat earth, and then these are the different levels of hell, and these are the different levels of heaven. And notice there's a dome, because that is how they literally picture the world. The modern day world that they teach you about through NASA and stuff like that is false. And they're just promoting it with Elon Musk because they sort of like had to go to like an icon. Like it's almost like they pitch you like Iron Man through Marvel Comics, then they give you a real life person like that with Elon Musk, and then they make you, like, all those people that are into that kind of thing, like, fantasize about, you know, they kind of like idolize that thing, that mindset, like infinite money, infinite power, infinite intelligence, like that type of thing. That's what Elon Musk is to these people. So they give him, all of a sudden, you know how they were doing like that other guy that owns the Virgin Records, like he was going to be doing the space thing, and then all of a sudden he kind of was out of it, and then they went to Elon Musk because they need a cheerleader, just like the way that they control rap music and stuff like that, and control, you know, most of the white and black population with rap music and rock music is, you know, they give you cheerleaders, and they say like, oh, you should want to be like these people because this and this, and then there's people, like, most people go out and try to be like those people, not realizing their music is fake, and they're not really drug dealers and pimps and all this other stuff. You know, some are, but most aren't. And then these kids get locked up for doing the things that they heard in music or they saw on TV or whatever, or they just totally screw their life up. Either way, it's not a good way to live, and they're gonna have to pay for those things. I mean, I was gonna have to pay for so many things if the Lord didn't save my life. So it's just sad. It's just sad the way that the world is because of the fallen angels, what they've done. And just some more. I'm just gonna show a bunch of art real quick in this book, but see, that's like a picture of angels in the air all around someone. Another picture of angels. Just trying to get like a little bit of artwork on tonight so people can see it. Alright, this one's scary because that one, like, that actually happened to me before. I was sitting in my bedroom when I was younger, and I had just met my ex, and she told me that she had been messing with a Ouija board and stuff like that, and the mother of my kids, and you know, now the Lord's protected us, and like we pray against the Ouija board that she had at her house, and now the kids actually, like, she like freaked out on them, threw a phone at them, and now they don't even want to go there anymore. So, like, you know, the Lord takes care of everything, honestly, without you even having to do anything about it, if you just pray to him and ask him to help you. But yeah, so there was like a succubus, like, or something, like staring at me, sitting on my chest. I couldn't move, and it was like piercing, like these red, all I could see was red eyes staring at me. It was creepy. And hold on one second. I just want to find another picture that was on here, because this book that I'm looking at right now, it talks about the story of Tundale, when Tundale goes to hell, because he was like a big, huge, fat guy that, like, didn't take care of anyone. He was super horrible to people, and he just dropped dead, and then he went to hell, and he literally was tortured in all the ways that he would have been tortured if he had died and gone to hell. And then when he came out of it, he was like, whoa, like, I'm never gonna do anything bad again. And he gave all of his riches and everything away as soon as he got back. And that same thing, that giving your money away when you went to hell and came back, even righteous people end up doing that. Like, one guy, he like went to the place which is only like the highest level of heaven, level of hell, without like as bad of tortures as other places. You go from like boiling hot to like really, really cold snow, and back and forth, like, and it says there's a verse that says, "Woe to those who steal even in hell," because the people that are come from the fire, they go to the snow and they steal the snow so that they can put it like on their body when they're in hell. And it says, "Woe unto those that steal even in hell." I've read it on this channel before, but so this says, according to Hebrews, the universe is a hierarchy. The Christians adopted this Jewish model of the cosmos in which God is both at the center of the cosmos and at the highest point of the hierarchy. Entities radiate outward from his presence, some being close to the center, while others move further and further away from the divine source of light and love. So this is the 10 different layers of heaven, and you'll see like this would be God's throne at the top. So you have to picture this in like a 3D version. You know, that's like just if you only count them as groups. This is like each individual layer. So basically, if you thought about this on, if it was like flat model with like a dome over it, just picture that, and that's how you keep going. Like those are the different layers of heaven as you go up. It's kind of hard to like picture it when it's not 3D, but that's why I showed you the 3D one first. But this is another picture of Jacob's ladder. Like I said, it goes up because on a round spinning globe, angels could not do this. It's a stairway. It might be a spiritual stairway, but they still go up and down. So real quick, I'm going to read some of the things that I highlighted in this. Like, even this is like the first, this is just the introduction, and look, that's a picture of Led Zeppelin. Like, where would somebody come up with something like that? Because that's a fallen angel. That's like a succubus demon on the cover of Led Zeppelin's like poster or whatever. So it says here, and I'm not going to read the entire thing just for time's sake. In the 1978 Gallup poll, half the subjects questioned about their belief in angels and demons answered positively. For those who did not share the belief, it might be assumed that they felt angels or devils were an outlandish Gothic superstition for which there must be some simple scientific or psychological explanation. In the Western tradition, in order to reveal the purpose and destiny of humankind, God's word is communicated through celestial messengers whose primary function was to praise and serve the Almighty and do his will. Before modern science appeared in the 16th and 17th century, and with it the newly discovered laws and forces of nature, angels were supposed to have moved the stars and the elements. That was the belief, is that angels are the ones that moved it. Remember I told you angels are the ones that power the sun, angels are the ones that power the moon, angels are the ones that power the stars. In fact, most people think that the stars are actually the fallen angels imprisoned in balls of light, and they have to be there to let us map out our lives. Like back in the day, they used it as ways to map the seas and the oceans and things like that, and also to tell the times of the year and the seasons. In my opinion, it was a punishment for the fallen angels. Some of them got stuck to the firmament as little like night lights for us to do what we have to do in our life. So that belief was something that was held by most people until the 16th century. When was the King James Bible changed from not having the Apocrypha? In like the 1800s. Originally in the 1600s though, it had the Apocrypha. So in a 200-year span, once science came into the picture, which is pseudoscience, not correct science, which is just observing things with your eyes and how you feel, what you feel with your senses. So they started, it took like 200 years for them to change it basically. So just gonna read some of my notes. It says, the Swedish mystic Swedenborg once said, I am well aware that many will say that no one can possibly speak with spirits and angels so long as in the living body. Many say it is all fancy, others that I recount such things to win credence, while others all make other kinds of objections. But I am deterred by none of these, for I have seen, I have heard, and I have felt. Which is pretty similar to what most people say. Like, I don't really care what you tell me about Jesus Christ. I felt the fact that he changed my life. I feel that he has changed me to be a better person. When I'm alone and I have lustful thoughts, or I have evil thoughts, or envious thoughts, or whatever the thoughts are, I pray to the Lord and they go away. And they never did that before until I actually meant it and I wanted to change. You know, I did ask before, but it seemed like I wasn't asking with all of my heart. I wasn't trying to be the person that Christ was. I wasn't trying to be pure enough because I just didn't want it. I was holding on. There were strings that were holding on to me that I needed to let go of. And sometimes they, they grasp onto me for, longer than I'd like them to, and then I have to rebuke them because they just stay. But it's a battle. This is a race. When you're running a race, there's obstacles. There's things in the way. There are things to overcome, and we're fighting the good fight. It's just something that's worth fighting for. So this, and that guy that I just read that about, that was a Swedish mystic. That's not even like a Christian. So, if people that are mystics feel these same things, and even people, there's people out there that they don't follow Christ, they follow other false religions or whatever, but they still have some type of thing where they feel things in their spirit. These are false things for them, but there is some realm that almost every religion says, like, because honestly, like, why do people, like I had a friend that was a Muslim, and we went to his church, and I didn't go in. I stayed in the car. But him and this other kid that was visiting from Pakistan, they went in the Muslim church, and they came back out, and they were like, "Oh, I feel so much better now," because the demons, they will get, they're always oppressing people. It doesn't matter who they are. They're always oppressing every human being alive. They're oppressing them. Then, just like in false Christian churches, people go into these places to get that relief, because in my opinion, the demons, especially in like Catholicism, because they're inside the statues and stuff like that, the fallen angels and the demons, they'll stop torturing you for a little while. And then when they do that, you get this feeling like, oh my gosh, it was such a great feeling when I was in there. That's the false light of Lucifer. That is the same feeling that people get, like Masons get, and all these other people that get high on power and money and all the things that Lucifer promises them, that he promised to Christ as well. And Christ said, I don't need any of that stuff. I'm fulfilled in myself because I am righteousness. Jesus was righteousness. So he didn't need anything to complete him. He was completion itself. You know what I'm saying? So let's try to just be like that. Let's try to be like Christ, because what else is there? Honestly, there's nothing. It says right here that these next few parts are very interesting. Material found within the Old Testament was gradually gathered over a period lasting about a millennium. Most of its scriptures were actually compiled during or shortly after the period of exile in Babylonia, 586 to 538 BC. In the 2nd century BC, these Hebrew scriptures were translated into Greek, called the Septuagint, to form the Old Testament. But some texts were subsequently rejected from the canon by the later church fathers. These are now known as the Apocrypha, or the hidden books. They are not to be confused with the Pseudepigrapha, or the false writings, which was never included in the original canon at any time. The latter appeared in great profusion during the apocalyptic phase of writing, which commenced about 200 years before Christ and ended about 100 years after Christ's death. The end of the world had failed to arrive. The new golden age had failed to materialize, and the apocalyptic revelations went out of fashion. It's reasonable to assume that everything one would want to know about angels, their names, attributes, and duties, would be found in the Christian Bible. Surprisingly, this is just about the last place you can discover such information. The Old Testament actually only mentions 3 angels by name. If we count the Catholic book of Tobit, which is not Catholic, it was just included in the Catholic canon, but it's not a Catholic book. Because the Catholic canon kept the books from the Apocrypha in their Bible, that I have a copy of it. But I took out the 10 Commandments out of it because they don't include the one that says... actually, I took a lot of stuff out of the Catholic Bible. It's just weird priest crap. So where do we find the more intimate details of angelic life? Who they were, who they are, what they are called, and what they do, and how they interact with humankind. Just skipping ahead for 1 second. Actually, I'll read this. Virtually all the information that we possess comes from outside the Orthodox scriptures and canons of the 4 religions that believe in the existence of angels. Indeed, most of these particular texts have been declared heretical, pseudepigraphal, or apocryphal, and yet it is largely these heretical texts which form the basis of our present if hazy, ideas of the host, and on which a large portion of this present volume is based. Typical such texts are the three great chronicles of Enoch, compiled around the 2nd century before Christ from much earlier sources. The pages simply teem with angelic life, names, duties, characteristics, and the most intimate description of the host of angels. Listen to this. This is the guy I told you that had a real problem with these texts and had them removed from our modern day Bible. Saint Jerome declared these chronicles to be apocryphal in the 4th century AD, but up until then they had been deemed an inspired canonical scripture by all the earliest fathers. In it, the scribe Enoch described his journey to the 10 heavens, in which he saw gigantic angels in a penal and punishment area. Now, this was hardly consistent with the later view of the church of a separate heaven and hell. So Enoch's text fell into disrepute and virtually disappeared until the 18th century. Because when you read Enoch, it seems from his description, because he must be so high, like in the sky, like so high, you have to picture it. So high up in the sky that he could see the chasm between heaven and hell. So when he tells the story, it seems like they're together, but they're not. There's a big gap in between, kind of like my shirt. Picture like that. So that girl, I can't think of her name, but she's the black girl that's on YouTube that went to heaven and saw it. And she said the same thing. She said there's a big gap in between heaven and hell. There's some type of gap. Not only that, but Tundale, which is from the medieval Irish Apocrypha, the story of Tundale, which is so weird because I literally got 12 or 15 books open to the exact spot that I wanted to read from tonight. And this opened to the story of Tundale out of this whole book. Granted, I've read it a few times, but still, it opened to like literally Tundale talking about the torments of hell that he is looking at right now. And I'm going to read them in a second. And these are some of the things. Although it is unacceptable to Orthodox doctrine, nevertheless, much of Enoch's apocryphal material found its way into the New Testament without anyone suspecting. He will be the most important guide to the 7 heavens and the dark caverns of the underworld of Sheol, Gehenna, hell, and the bottomless abyss. God or the devils, for instance, in the Old Testament, there is no reference to the fallen angels at all. There is nothing to suggest that Satan was evil. We read of Ha-Satan, the adversary, but this appears to stand for an office, and by no means a wicked one, rather than being the name of an angel. Whoever held the office was the being most beloved by God, and certainly not the Satan who appears in the New Testament. Any concept of good and malevolent angels seems to be completely lacking in the Old Testament writings, but by the time the New Testament was compiled, 1/3 of the heavenly host led by Satan had fallen into the abyss. Why is that? Because they took all the books out, because they don't want you figuring all this stuff out at all. They don't want you to connect the pieces. There is even one Gnostic version in which the Jewish god Yahweh is shown to be Satan, Prince of Darkness, who created our universe and rules it with his dark and evil angels. It is only by studying the Apocrypha, the apocalyptic scriptures, and the pseudepigrapha that the rich and multicolored pictures of angelic and demon legions can be pieced together. See, what I just said, this part right here that says Gnostic version, where the Jewish god Yahweh and all this stuff, see, that text is super hard to read, and Zen is one of the only people that I've actually heard talk about it, and I can understand what he's saying when he talks about it, because when I first read that, what it's just talking about in the Nag Hammadi Codices, which is this, which is 900 and, sorry, I was like dog fur on my book. In this book, there is like 900 pages, and it tells like all the secrets that Jesus told to the apostles. It tells the story of that, which is basically like that the devil and his angels are the ones that made us, which technically is true, but it's not what people make it out to be, and this goes down a huge rabbit hole, so I'm not going to take a lot of time on it. But basically, under the guidance of Jesus Christ, this prison planet that we live on right now, and this flesh suit that we're all in right now that feels pain and all this stuff, this is our test. And in order to have this test, we were our bodies with under it's remember it says we were fearfully and wonderfully made. It's because the good and the bad angels had a part in making our bodies in the current form that we are in right now, in a sense. Super complicated, but I just want to give you an idea of what that text is talking about. You can go, like, read it, figure it out for yourself. I don't like to talk about that because it brings in too much, like, arguments about stuff, and it's stupid. The astronomical findings of the 16th century demolished the last vestiges of a world at the center of the universe. Angels could not survive the fact that Earth was a very minor planet circling a mediocre star on the outer arm of a relatively inconspicuous galaxy. Boom. That right there, what I just said, is the answer why they want you to believe in NASA. That's why NASA's symbol is a snake's tongue. That is why Nasha means deception in Hebrew, which is very close to the word NASA. That's why they pumped Stargate Next Generation in all the movies during this past century. Like, since 1948, Israel became a nation. 1952, Roswell happened. The fallen angels were starting to, like, make appearances. Boom, 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 all throughout history. Then somehow, during the Eisenhower administration, the fallen angels made a pact with the United States government, saying that they would give them technology like the phone I'm talking to you on right now. They would give them that technology and, high space technology, like super hyper flight, like the movie the Flight of the Navigator that came out when I was like a kid, the Disney movie, things like that. That kind of technology. I told you Jackie seen it in my backyard in Windham, New Hampshire. So they start coming in, and in the 1600s, that's when really they got rid of all that idea that there are heavenly, beings out there, because people started believing in science. They started believing in space. We don't mean anything. We're just, a floating speck of dust, when in actuality, we are kings. We are the sons of the living God. And Jesus said that himself. Jesus said that himself. Why are you getting mad at me? He said to the Pharisees. You say in your scriptures that ye are gods. Hold on a second. This book tells you all the different, all the different levels of angels, like, the fourth choirs, the dominions, the fifth choirs, the virtues, the sixth choirs, the powers, and these are the different levels of heaven that Christ had to come down through when he was going to the underworld to defeat Satan and death. And bear with me. Okay, this part I had to highlight so you could see it, but it might not make too much sense, but that's like Tobias and the angel Raphael, but Tobias doesn't know that Raphael is like an angel. He thinks he's a man, and he just came to help him on his journey. And in this story, hold on one second. And when he went to wash his feet, and behold, a monstrous fish came up to devour him. And Tobias, being afraid of him, cried out with a loud voice, saying, Sir, he cometh upon me. And the angel said to him, Take him by the gill, and draw him to thee. And when he had done so, he drew him up onto the land, and he began to pant before his feet. Then the angel said to him, Take out the entrails of this fish, and lay up his heart and his gall and his liver for thee, for these are necessary for useful medicines. And when he had done so, he roasted the flesh thereof, and they took it. And when they went away, the rest they salted as much as might serve them, till they came to the Rages, the city of Medes. Then Tobias asked the angel, and said to him, I beseech thee, brother Azarias, tell me what remedies are these good for, which thou hast bid me to keep the fish. And the angel answering said to him, If thou put a little piece of its heart upon coals, and smoke thereof driveth away all kinds of devils, either from man or from a woman, so that they come no more to them. And the gall is good for anointing the eyes, in which there is a white speck, and they shall be cured. Now, Tobias, this is from the book of Tobit in the Apocrypha. Tobias, his father Tobit, was burying the dead. While he was burying the dead, he got arrested for doing it because it was illegal or something like that to do it. he didn't care because there's a blessing in the Bible. For anyone that buries the dead, there's a blessing, and he kept doing it. Even after he got arrested, he was burying the dead. He found dead people on the side of the road, he'd bury them. So he was leaning back on this wall, and a bird like went the bathroom in his eye, and it caused his eye to become blind. So the angel is telling him, take this and give it to your father so you can heal his eye. This also is going to be used later in the story, because the woman that he's about to go be betrothed to, she has been plagued by a demon that every time she goes to get married, out of 6 different guys, they all get murdered. The angel, the demonic angel, the fallen angel comes. It's a very high-ranking demon, which is also in the story, the Testament of Solomon, where Solomon has the ring. This is the story I've been telling you about. And basically Solomon is told by the demon that he can only be like rebuked by a certain, like the gall of a certain fish. This is the fish, and this is how you get it from this one river where it can be found. So they later use that to rebuke the demon, and then he marries the girl, and then it's happily ever after, basically. So bear with me one second. This is talking about okay, this is the Archangel Raphael. I'm just going to read it. The Shining One who heals was originally known as Labiel in Chaldea. The Hebrew term Rapha means healer, doctor, or surgeon. As angel of healing, he is often associated with the image of a serpent. He is known to be the chief ruling prince of the second heaven, chief of the order of virtues, guardian of the tree of life in Eden, and by his own admission, one of the 7 angels of the throne. This he reveals to Tobias in the book of Tobit. In this account, he travels with Tobit's son in disguise without letting him know that who he is until the journey's end. He shows Tobias, who has caught a huge fish, how each part of the creature, the heart, the gall, and the liver, these are necessary for useful medicines. The gall is good for anointing the eyes, in which there is a white speck, and they will be cured. He is declared to be one of the 4 presences set over all the diseases and all the wounds of the children of men. Enoch 1. And in the Zohar is charged to heal the earth, and the earth which furnishes a place for man, whom he also heals of his illnesses. He heals Abraham of pain of circumcision, since the patriarch had skillfully avoided this rite until his old age, and cures Jacob of his disjointed thigh, which he managed to get while wrestling with one of Raphael's colleagues. Although officially a virtue, he is said to have 6 wings of a seraph, but at the same time belongs to the cherubim, the dominions, and the powers. He is said to be both the chummiest and the funniest of all the angelic flock, and is often depicted chattily, merrily, and with some unsuspecting mortal. His sunny disposition is possibly due to his being regent or angel of the sun. Amongst other friendly acts, he presented Noah with a medical book, which could have been the mysterious book of the angel Raziel. It is said that this book gave Noah the knowledge he needed to build the ark. Thought that was pretty interesting. I know it was a mouthful, but I wanted to read it for you guys. Hold on, I'm still looking for a certain painting. Okay, this is important. This is something that Jesus says in the Nag Hammadi Codices. So this is talking about Metatron, which we're going to read in a minute, probably tonight if we have time. We're only at 30 minutes. I'm trying to like blaze through this. If you guys can't keep up, hopefully you can have a chance to re-listen to it. So sorry, I'm flying through it. So basically it's talking about Metatron and him being Enoch after he was translated into heaven. It says, but Metatron's portrait is not complete without the last mysterious connection, the Shekinah. This is the Hebrew version of the Hindu Shakti, which can be understood as the female principle of God in man. The creation of the world was, according to the Zohar, the work of the Shekinah. The male aspect is, of course, the creator, or the demiurge, one of Metatron's roles. See, they use the word demiurge, but in the Nag Hammadi Codices, it's talking about like this lower plane, because even Jesus said that the devil was basically the lowercase God of this place, and he had the power here. Obviously, Jesus has all the power, but he didn't call upon his power, because he said if I wanted to, I could ask my Father to send angels to take care of me right now, but he didn't do that. So he was allowing himself to be fully man while he was still fully God. The Shekinah was exiled after the fall of Adam and Eve, and rabbis claim that to lead the Shekinah back to God and as to unite her with him is the true purpose of the Torah. In other words, the whole purpose of life is to reunite the female and the male into one whole. Now, regardless of what you think about what that means, try not to think of it as a human male and human female type thing, because it's said that the angels are androgynous, they're male and female. Not speaking necessarily genitalia wise, it's just like some type of aspect, like a feminine and a masculine aspect. So this is actually something that Jesus says quite frequently in the Nag Hammadi codices. He says all the time to all the disciples, he says it like almost in every passage, to reunite the male and the female. He even says it to Mary Magdalene, and I think the disciples were kind of pissed that he would tell her something like that, but they didn't realize what she was. Like, they didn't realize that they were all a metaphor. Like, Jesus spoke to them as people, but he also spoke to them as if he were speaking to all of us in a metaphoric sense. And I know that's complicated to say, but it's true. So when he was speaking to her, she represents the age, and the age is this time where mankind has had a chance to choose between Satan and God. And the reason he cast 7 demons out of her is because Jesus cast 7 demons out of this age, and those demons were some type of principality or power that was meant to keep mankind in the dark, but Jesus wouldn't let that happen because he's the good shepherd. And I know that's also complicated. Bear with me, I'm trying to find... Why can I never find a picture when I'm looking for it? And basically, this whole book is just pictures of angels throughout the course of history. Bear with me 1 second. I want you to see it because it's pretty important, because it's basically the portrait of Tundale, what he saw when he was in heaven, and it was drawn by like a pretty famous painter. I just can't think of who it was. Bear with me a second. That's not it. It's actually kind of creepy. That's why I want to show you, because it depicts that image of what Tundale saw in hell like perfectly. Like my opinion, like it's so scary. Bear with me, guys, for a second. I feel like it wasn't this far. Oh, here it is. Ugh, hate this picture. Anyways, this is what Tundale saw in the pits of hell, and this also matches this Korean man who recently saw hell. This is also what he saw, and that's the devil right there. It's actually, the devil's way more creepier than that. He's on hot coals, but he does consume humans and spit them out, but he has like 1,000 arms with 1,000 fingers and 1,000 like different like piercing things on it. But that is literally what like it looks like. That's what I picture it as. Just like people being tortured by demons. And I try to explain that to people all the time. I tried to read it in the super gospel. I try to warn people that that's what hell's gonna be like, and it's not worth hanging on to stuff and not forgiving people for what they've done to you, because you know, it's sad what people are gonna have to go through. But yeah, if you want to learn about the vision of Tundale, it's in the medieval Irish Apocrypha, and if all the things that it says in here that are tortures of hell, it's also in, can't find my copy, it's here somewhere. It's also in the super gospel at the end. Hold on one second. It says here, The hideousness of this punishment gripped Tundale more than any of the others he had seen, but there was worse, for within the fire that raged inside this evil building, Tundale caught sight of a terrifying dog. The sight petrified him. Tundale pleaded with the angel to let him escape from this frightening hell, but the angel was unyielding. Evil spirits approached Tundale with their grim tools and terrifying equipment, seized him, and chopped him into little pieces. But he could not die, and he soon found that his body was restored once again. Tundale heard a cacophony of howling and groaning while he was there. The fire that he had seen streaking out from the building burnt up everything within, and all the souls were ravenous with hunger, for there was nothing to eat but dry ash. Tundale saw many in this place who had had their genitals eaten away, and he saw clergymen who were riddled with parasites and vermin. Their limbs were bitten and raw, and there were grubs and parasites eating away inside them. Tundale personally recognized some of those who were there, and he knew that they deserved their fate. But soon he found himself looking at the building from outside once more. He did not know how he had escaped from it, but he was very happy to have done so. He next found himself standing in a dark place called the Cauldron of Dread. He could see nothing but his angel standing before him. Interestingly enough, a cauldron is what witches use to cast spells and things like that. They mix everything in together in it. That's what most little kids, a lot of them bring around as their bucket for Halloween, and it's also the name of this place in hell. But it is also a movie made by Walt Disney, The Black Cauldron. So just interesting just to piece those little things together. Alas, he said, where is the truth of this saying that God's mercy surpasses all things? I have seen no sight of it. That saying deceives many, replied the angel, and I will explain it to you. Although God is full of mercy, he is constrained to do the proper thing, but he forgives wickedness more often than ever he finds goodness and wisdom. The torments you have suffered here have been lenient compared to those that you deserved. Tundale knelt and thanked God that he had escaped so quickly. Who would pay any heed to God, continued the angel, if he were always to forgive a man his sins without any pain of punishment? A man would never need to do any good if this was the case. But those who are sinful and have done no penance, but who are repentant, shall receive no vengeance from God. Through his mercy they shall be saved, and yet their souls shall feel pain for the sins they have committed. Often God will cause a man's possessions to be taken away from him, so that his pain can be reduced when he gets here. For if a man knows the benefit of poverty and thanks God for it, then his soul shall suffer the less when he dies, and he shall soon say farewell to all pain and achieve everlasting bliss. But there is no one in the world who is so good or so perfect, not even a newborn baby, that he shall not have to endure some torment in purgatory. But he who is eager to love God shall escape much of it, and certainly more than the man who is damned to hell for his wickedness. The damned shall see such joy in heaven that no greater comfort could be imagined, but will not be able to experience any of it, and this shall bring him more pain than all the terrors of hell put together. And I, obviously, you can believe what you want in that portion of it where it talks about that, everybody has to experience some portion of, the torments of hell. But basically, the description of hell I've heard from multiple sources. The other part, though, I've heard, the other part that I believe is more true than that is the Apocalypse of John or something like that, I forget the exact text, but it basically says that the Christian man, when he dies, the righteous man, when he dies, because his righteousness comes from Christ, because he's been forgiven for his sins. And I don't mean somebody that doesn't try. I mean like a super hard trying Christian that actually repents, tries to live a righteous lifestyle and things like that. That person, when he dies, his good angel that is with him his entire life goes with him up. And when you leave the dome, all the dominions and powers and lust and all the different evils are there, and they question you and they say, let's check to see if there's any bad things of us in you. And then the helper angel bypasses them and goes with you to God so that you can stand before him. And the only person, honestly, that I've actually read that didn't have to go through that process, the only one I've read that didn't have to go through that process was Moses. And that's because God was actually there at his funeral. In actuality, God was there and was conversing with Moses, saying, don't worry, it'll be okay. Because something happens to human beings I have never experienced, the feelings of being on my deathbed, so I don't know. But even Joseph the carpenter, Jesus's father, had never been sick before and started dying, even Adam himself, when you start dying, they start going over their life. Did I do this? Did I do that? And they worry. And Jesus actually had to pray for his father Joseph that he wouldn't feel that anxiety that comes when you're about to die. So bear with me. We're just going to do a lot of quick excerpts tonight, because you guys asked me to just give some stories of the fallen angels. Some of them obviously are of Satan, but I'm going to give as many as I can. And Jared his son rose up and ministered before God in the cave of treasures. He was a perfect man and was complete in all his virtues, and he was constant in prayer by day and by night. And because of the excellence of his life and conversation, his days were longer than those of all the children of his people. And in the days of Jared, in the 500th year of his life, the children of Seth broke the oaths which their fathers had made them to swear, and they began to go down from the holy mountain to the encampment of iniquity of the children of Cain, the murderer. And in this way the fall of the children of Seth took place. Notes. In the book of Adam says that Jared continued to govern the people successfully until the end of the 485th year of his life. At this time, Satan and 30 of his devils, which are the fallen angels, appeared to Jared in the form of handsome men and called him from the cave of treasures, came out to them and thought they were strangers, and asked them who they were. In answer, Satan told him that he was Adam, and that among his companions were Abel, Seth, Enos, Canaan, and other kinsmen of Jared. He invited Jared to come with him and live with him in the garden which God had given him. And at length Jared was persuaded to leave the cave and go with him. When they arrived at the top of the mountain of the sons of Cain, Satan pretended that he had left a garment of Jared by the cave and sent one of his devils back to fetch it, telling him at the same time to extinguish the lamp which was burning in the cave near Adam's body. That lamp had been going for a long time. That's why it's a big thing if it went out. Satan and Jared rested by a fountain, and food was brought out to them by the sons and daughters of Cain, but Jared refused to eat or drink. Satan entreated him to put aside his sadness and to do as he was going to do. Thereupon Satan and 5 of his devils each seized a woman and committed fornication with her. On seeing this exhibition of iniquity, Jared burst into tears and began to pray to God to be delivered from that place. When he began to pray, the devils took to flight, and God sent an angel who brought him back to his holy mountain. When he returned to the cave, his people told him that the lamp had been extinguished and the bodies of the patriarchs had been scattered about, and that voices had come from them. On entering the cave, a voice came to him from Adam's body and warned him to beware of Satan and his wiles, and told him to relight the lamp from the fire on the altar on which Adam had ministered. The lamp was relighted at the end of the 450th year of Jared's life. 80 years later, his people began to go down to the children of Cain and mingle with their women. So, that verse, obviously, it means a lot to me because it's my name, but it is interesting because when I read that, it made me so disgusted with pornography. Something that would make a man that was 500 years old, that was pure and righteous. Imagine being pure and righteous for 500 years. I could barely do it for 5 minutes. And he saw Satan having sex with women, and it made him so disgusted that he started bawling, crying. That made me never want to look at pornography again. It made me disgusted. It made me disgusted with this world. It made me disgusted with myself. It made me disgusted with, any of my previous sins, and I just asked God to forgive me for it, because I just think that we take for granted how righteous the patriarchs really were and how righteous we should really be. So that was one story of the fallen angels. This is The Sons of God by Zen Garcia. I'm just going to read these 2 pages. Bear with me one second. Basically talks about how Jesus was the first Adam, because he was the Adam of light, which was expressed like when it says in the Bible, "Let there be light," that was Jesus being shown to all the angels. And once he was shown by God to all the angels, then they could also see themselves, and they realized that they were in like an actual physical existence. And then it says, the 6th day Adam was separated from the fallen angels, protected and placed in paradise, the garden of the Lord, located at the 3rd heaven. This Adam was given assignment to tend the garden before Eve, his wife, was split off from him to bring both male and female genders into being. This Eve is the one that was seduced by Samael, Satan, as the serpent in paradise. This beguiling is what led to the loss of their bright natures and the fall from grace. In this chapter, I will attempt to elucidate the three world ages and their association to this cryptic passage. The three world ages parallel the three creations of Adam, and thus, in my opinion, essential to understand this quote, to understand how each age fits in with those creations of Adam. This quote is essential to unlocking and understanding how the creation of Adam of light, revealed on the first day, a soul-endowed Adam revealed on the sixth day, and a flesh Adam revealed on the eighth day parallel the three world ages teaching. The first Adam, Adam of light, or Yahushua, banished Lucifer and his angels from heaven, and central theme for the first world age. The second creation of Adam, Adam of paradise, resulted in the separation of hermaphroditic angelic beings, both male and female in their natures, which is what I told you at the beginning of the show. Creation of woman, loss of immortality, and fall from paradisiac. I can't even say that word. Paradisiacal grace. The eating of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, as promised by the Lord, led to incarnation in flesh on the eighth day, where they would fulfill those prophecies as outlined by Genesis 3 and eventually succumb to death, that the Lord said would overcome them. The forbidden fruit symbolically veiled incarnation. The blossoming of sexuality, impregnation of Eve by the archons, which are the fallen angels, once transformed into flesh bodies, and humanity's first awareness of their genitalia. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow, and thy conception in sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Genesis 3:16. The entrance into flesh and loss of their light vestures resulted in humanity's collective entrance into the second world age and 7,000 years of duality, in which we, as the sons of God, would be given free will to incarnate into flesh, whereby we would be tested in life to learn, through the knowledge of good and evil, what existence would be like separated from God. I tell that to people all the time. This world sucks. This world is run by the devil. This is what it's like if Lucifer had his way with the world. Who wants to live here? Not me. My hope in this chapter is to familiarize the reader with what the three world ages are and how they relate to the loss of paradise. Understanding this concept will help one to understand the incarnation and why it is we live in the flesh. So that expounds greatly. That can be found on Lost Page, but it's in the Sons of God. Great book. Read by Zen Garcia, if you want to check it out. I want to read this. It's called On the Last Times, the Antichrist and the End of the World. But it's not really what we're talking about tonight, so I think I'm going to hold off on that for a second. This is those who are sealed in the super gospel. It doesn't really have to do with fallen angels, but I want to read it real quick. The other part's longer. O you nations that, this is from 2nd Ezra 2:34b through 41. O you nations that hear and understand, watch for your shepherd, and he will give you everlasting rest. For near at hand is he who comes at the close of this age. Ready yourselves for the treasures of the kingdom, for the eternal light will shine on you forevermore. Flee the specter of this age and receive the joy of your glory. I bear witness openly of my Savior. Accept the gift being given to you. Be completely filled with joy. Give thanks to him who has called you to the heavenly realm. Rise up and stand tall. Behold the number of those who are sealed at the feast of the Lord, those who have fled from the shadow of this world and accepted the glorious robes from their Lord. Take again, O Zion, the fullness of your numbers, and seal up the measure among you of those who have clothed themselves in white, who have satisfied the law of the Lord. Fulfilled is the number of your children, all of those whom you have longed. Ask for power from the Lord, that your people, those who were called from the very start, might now be made holy. And then the second part, which matches what I was going to read earlier, it talks about the fig tree. I don't want to read the whole thing, this is pretty long. I'm going to read the next part, which is the coming of Enoch and Elijah. Enoch and Elijah will then be sent in order to instruct them that this is the deceiver coming into the world, that he might mislead through signs and wonders. And at that time the Tishbite, advancing a heavenly chariot at full speed from heaven, will arrive upon the earth and show forth 3 signs for the entire world, even as life is fading away. Woe to as many as are found to be with child on that day, and as many who are nursing babes, and as many as dwell upon the sea. Woe indeed to as many as will see that day, for a cloud of darkness will envelop the earth, from east to west and south to north. And so it will happen that those who are slain by his hand will be numbered among the good and faithful martyrs, who in their lifetimes have pleased God. And that's in the Super Gospel, Raphael. And I was going to read 3rd Enoch. Oh, that's what I'm going to read in Enoch. It's pretty cool. Hold on one second. So, the collected works of Enoch the prophet, edited by Zen Garcia. This is page 256. The Enoch Book of Giants reconstructed from the Dead Sea Scrolls. See? Jesus came and rose from the dead on the 3rd day, the 3rd millennia, which is now. Dead Sea Scrolls are Jesus, the Word of God. These fallen angels knew the secrets of all things. At this time, sin was great on the earth. The wicked angels killed many people and begot giants with mortal women. The wicked former angels consumed everything that the earth produced. The great fish, the birds in the sky, all the fruit of the earth, all kinds of grain, the fruit of the trees, even beasts and reptiles they committed sin against. All the creeping things of the earth, they observed all earthly things. They performed every harsh deed with harsh utterance upon male and female creation and upon humanity itself. 200 angels had been persuaded to leave heaven for the earth. The 200 angels seized 200 donkeys, 200 asses, 200 sheep, and rams of the flock, 200 goats, 200 beasts of the field from every animal and from every bird, for experiments in inbreeding with humans and all types of miscegenation. As a result, monsters were created among all the perversion due to mingling animal seed with mortal women. Similar to Egyptian gods, satyrs, and possibly even dinosaurs, the historian Josephus mentions that Enoch had business in Egypt, then he was called Syriad. The monsters sought out flesh which would be destroyed or perverted. Monsters and giants would arise who were lacking in true knowledge because they were abominations. Meantime, the earth grew even more corrupt and the giants more mighty. They considered trying to persuade other angels to come upon the earth, otherwise their tyranny might ultimately perish and die. All the time they were causing great corruption in the earth. If this aim did not suffice to perpetuate them, they would be finally destroyed, they believed. The fallen ones defiled all creation and begot giants and monstrous creatures, and corrupted all the earth, which was defiled by bloodshedding at the hands of the giants. But this did not suffice them, and they were seeking all the time to devour much more. The monsters attacked all creation. The giants are now troubled with portentous dreams, and Maui reports his dream to the rest of the giants. Apparently he sees a tablet inscribed with several names immersed in water, which only has 3 names remaining when it emerges. The usual interpretation is that this symbolizes the death of all on earth except Noah and his sons. Maui reported that men drenched the tablet in water so that it was covered. It was then lifted out and all the inscriptions but 3 had vanished. Maui goes to the others and they discuss the dream. This vision is cause for cursing and sorrow, said the group. I said Maui am the one who will be blamed most of the whole group of those cast down out of heaven, and I shall have to go to hear the spirits of the slain complaining about their killers, and crying out that we shall all die together and be made an end of. When I was sleeping and dreaming, bread and dwelling will be denied me. So troubled with this vision, the monsters entered into the gathering of the giants. Then Oya spoke without trembling to Maui, who showed you all this vision, my brother. Barakel, my father, was with me as a corroborator, and it seemed experienced the same vision. But before Maui had finished telling what he had seen in his dream, Oya said to him, now I have heard wonders. If a barren woman gives birth, that would be an equal wonder. Whereupon Oya said to Haya, are we to be destroyed upon this earth? Isn't that kind of weird he just said that? If a barren woman gives birth? That's Mary. That's the only well, I guess barren wouldn't be the same as virgin, but most in the Bible, most of the patriarchs were born unto women that were previously barren. So it's like Abraham, and that all foreshadows Christ. But just weird he would say that. It doesn't even seem to make sense in that context. Anyways, when they had finished discussing the dreams, both Oya and Haya wept before assembled giants and monsters. Use your strength and the group counseled. Then Oya said to Haya, this doom is not for us, but for Azazel, one of the wicked angels, for he showed most corruption to humanity. They surely will not let all their loved ones be neglected. We are not to be cast down. You angels and monsters have strength and can resist. The giants, however, realized that fighting heaven is futile. Gilgamesh said, I am a giant, and by my mighty strength in my arm I can vanquish any mortal. I have made war with them mortals in the past, but I am not able to stand against my opponents who reside in heaven and dwell in holy places. And not only this, but they are in fact stronger than I am. See, even they knew that they had no chance. And if you guys want to read the rest of that, it's on page 256. For in the generation of Jared my father they transgressed the word of the Lord, departing from the covenant of heaven, and behold, they sin and transgress the custom, and have to do with women and sin with them, and they have married wives from among them. That's when this all happened, as they came down in the time of Jared, which I think his name even means they shall come down or something like that. Hold on 1 second. See, this part's interesting right here. This is Enoch 104:27. Sinners alter and write against the words of truth, and lead the many away, and they lie and invent great falsehoods, and write out the scriptures in their names. And would that they write all my words truthfully in their names, and neither take away or change any in these words, but write truthfully all that I testify to them. And again I know a second mystery, that to the just and the holy and wise my book shall be given for joy and in truth, and they shall believe them, and in them they shall be glad, and all righteous shall rejoice to learn from them all the ways of truth. And that's what we're reading literally this second. So that what I just read is a prophecy from Enoch's day, and it's being fulfilled on this show right this second, because we are reading this stuff now, right before Jesus comes back. It's prophetic. Let's see. So this is the Odes of Solomon. I just want to read it. It's pretty interesting. Ode 38. I went up into the light of truth as into a chariot, and the truth led me and caused me to come, and caused me to pass over chasms and gulfs. So that's like the chasms and gulf in heaven, I think, because that's what we were just talking about at the beginning of the show, and saved me from cliffs and valleys, and became for me a haven of salvation, and set me on the place of immortal life. And he went with me and caused me to rest, and did not allow me to err, because he was and is the truth. And there was no danger for me, because I constantly walked with him, and I did not err in anything, because I obeyed him. For error fled from him and never met him, but truth was proceeding on the upright way, and whatever I did not understand he exhibited to me, all the poisons of error and pains of death, which are considered sweetness. In the corrupting of the corrupter I saw, when the bride who was corrupting was adorned, and the bridegroom who corrupts and is corrupted. And then I asked truth, who are these? And he said to me, this is the deceiver and error, and they imitate the beloved and his bride, and they cause the world to err and corrupt it, and they invite many to the wedding feast, and allow them to drink the wine of their intoxication. So they cause them to vomit up their wisdom and their knowledge, and prepare for them mindlessness. Then they abandon them, and so they stumble about like mad and corrupted men. since there is no understanding in them, neither do they seek it. But I have been made wise so as not to fall into the hands of the deceivers, and I myself rejoiced because the truth had gone with me. For I was established and lived and was redeemed, and my foundations were laid on account of the Lord's hand, because he has planted me. For he set the root and watered it and endowed it and blessed it, and its fruit will be forever. It penetrated deeply and sprang up and spread out, and it was full and it was enlarged. And the Lord alone was glorified in his planting and in his cultivation, in his care and in his blessing of his lips, in the beautiful planting of his right hand, and in the attainment of his planting and in the understanding of his mind. Hallelujah. Oh, and that was from this book by Zen Garcia. This is from the Aramaic Targums. Sorry, the Aramaic and Palestinian Targums. Hold on, I gotta find the part. Oh, this part. Another part about the giants who were the progeny of the fallen angels. And a lot of people ask this question, like, so I just thought I'd share it. You might have heard it before, but I thought I'd read it to you. This is on page 30 of the Aramaic and Palestinian Targums, which is the original translation of the Bible. And Og came, who had been spared from the giants that died in the deluge, and had ridden protected upon the top of the ark, and sustained with food by Noah, not being spared through his high righteousness, but that the inhabitants of the world might see the power of the Lord, and say, were there not giants who in the first times rebelled against the Lord of the world, and perished from the earth? But when these kings made war, behold, Og, who was with them, said in his heart, I will go and show Abram concerning Lot, who was led captive, that he may come and deliver him from the hands of the kings, into whose hands he had been delivered. And he arose and came upon the eve of the day of the Pascha, and found him making the unleavened cakes. Then showed he to Abram the Hebrew, who dwelt in the valleys of Mamre, Omarah, brother of Eshcol, and the brother of Aner, who were men of the covenant of Abraham. And when Abraham heard that his brother had been made captive, he armed his young men who were trained for war, grown up in his house, but they willed not to go with him. And he chose from them Eleazar the son of Nimrod, who was equal in strength to all the 318, and he pursued unto Dan. That's crazy that one dude is stronger than all the 318 that were with him. So it's pretty interesting. So apparently, see, that's what I try to tell people. So that right there just says that Og of Bashan was still alive from the flood, and then so he rode on top of the ark and was saved by Noah. Then that was to glorify the Lord. Then that same giant went and told Abraham that Lot had been taken. And remember, I told you guys that Noah was still alive when Abraham was around. So Abraham, in the middle of the night, supposedly went to Noah when he ran away from Nimrod and Terah. He was thrown into a fiery furnace, escaped, and then he left. And when he ran away or whatever, he went to Noah and he learned Hebrew in the middle of the night. This timeline is pretty on par. It makes sense because it could have happened. You know, I'm not an expert on historical chronology or anything like that, but it seems pretty correct. Alright, this is what I wanted to read real quick. Alright, this is interesting because this is what we talk about sometimes, and I hope it makes sense because I only skimmed it, but the importance of this fact is to be seen if we turn to the chapter of the Satir on Bilium. Here Bilium is represented as worshipping 5 or 7 elements, or rather the demons of the elements. So they're worshipping the fallen angels. The magicians are worshipping the fallen angels in that time. In Samaritan, however, there is no demonology with the exception of Belial mentioned above. Also interesting, the cartoon that I mention this all the time. You know that show Captain Planet when you're a kid, and they say like, my powers combined, you're Captain Planet or whatever, but they're the elements are what give them power and stuff like that. I never thought of it that way, but it's saying here that the demons represent, or the elements represent each demon that they worship or whatever. So They follow the example of the Bible, in which the objects of the worship of the heathen nations are also designated as strange Elohim. The Samaritans use here also the name of El for strange God. In the Samaritan Pentateuch, a slight change has been introduced in all the passages of Numbers 24, wherever the Hebrew text has "and God spake to Balaam." The Samaritans could not accept the fact that God should speak to a heathen worshiper of idols, so they inserted the word angel before God in each one of those passages. See, that's what I read too. It says that you shouldn't have changed my words. That's what God said. These angels became afterward gods, lowercase g, of elements worshipped by Balaam. This worship of the elements was anterior to the astrological worship of stars and planets, which was of Babylonian origin. In the Assatir, we are therefore meeting with a much older stage. Bousset has dealt fully with the worship of the elements in his work on the fundamental principles of Gnosticism. So, clearly, showing right here, and it goes way down into all the reasons why they did this, but it says clearly right there that pure Gnosticism, actual Gnosticism, is the worship of the fallen angels and the elemental stuff. So there's clearly Gnosticism like that, and then the Gnostic text that they labeled Gnostic, because we know that Jesus said that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, and Gnostic means knowledge. It's just a fact. I'm not trying to dig into it. I'm not trying to put something where it doesn't belong. I am telling everyone, and a lot of people already know this, that they just gave a bad rap to a good thing. And that's what they did to Jesus. And they've been giving a bad rap to Jesus forever. And it doesn't seem to matter what TV show is on, or what movie is on, or how seemingly, carefree the movie is. It doesn't really seem to matter. They always slip in a GD or a JC, or like they always slip in taking the Lord's name in vain. Always. I don't understand it. They never mention Buddha. They never mention all these people that they put up on some high pedestal for their knowledge and their, great, skills of, doing whatever they did, like Gandhi and all these other, or Martin Luther King, or all these people that everybody idolized or whatever. They never, it's common knowledge now. It's common knowledge that Martin Luther King was going to be set up. They had actual photographs of him with underage girls, like, I'll just put it like that, and they were going to use it against him, and they decided to murder him anyway. Instead of just using it against him, they were going to murder him. And that is the person that people idolize to represent black people. Then they give him a day. They even immortalize him even more by giving him a day, so people feel like they're free. No one is free. White, black, Spanish, Chinese, nobody is free. We are all prisoners on this earth according to the will of the Lord to be tested. And that's cool with me. But it doesn't matter if you're behind bars, and it doesn't matter if you're in a house or an apartment or wherever you are, you're a prisoner. And you need to live out your sentence with humility and love for your neighbor and love for God. And if you can't do that, if you can't forgive people for what they've done to you, if you can't, humble yourself and get on your knees and ask Jesus Christ and his precious blood that he shed on the cross on Calvary, if you can't do that, then you're not getting out of here. You're going to die twice. So, this is my revised English Bible with the Apocrypha included. Bear with me for a moment. This is from Deuteronomy, if you can believe that Deuteronomy has something about the fallen angels. Deuteronomy chapter 32. Give ear, you heavens, to what I say. Listen, earth, to the words I speak. May my teachings fall like raindrops, my words distill like dew, like fine rain on tender grass, like lavish showers on growing plants. When I proclaim the name of the Lord, you will respond, great is our God, the Creator, whose work is perfect, for all his ways are just, a faithful God who does no wrong. How righteous and true he is. Perverted and crooked generations, whose faults have proved you no children of his. Is this how you repay the Lord, you senseless, stupid people? Is he not your Father who formed you? Did he not make you and establish you? Remember the days of old. Think of the years, age upon age. Ask your Father to inform you, the elders to tell you. When the Most High gave each nation its heritage, when he divided all mankind, he laid down the boundaries for peoples according to the number of the sons of God. Did you hear what that just said? He laid down the boundaries for people according to the number of the sons of God. Now you could say, oh, all right, well, he's just talking about, like, he just laid out the foundations for the people of the earth. No, he is saying that he laid the foundations of the areas that would be made to house us basically on this earth, because we are the sons of God. So basically, God's angels in heaven, that we were, the worshipers of God in heaven, had to come down here to be tested. We didn't want to come, but Jesus made us come down anyway, because he knew that it was something that had to be done. Look at how much he loved Moses. Look how much he loved Abraham. Look how much he loved Jeremiah, Isaiah. But they all had to become, human like us and be tested. And then he himself came down to be tested by the devil, and he won. And now he gives that victory to us, the people that don't deserve it, just by choosing him. When you align yourself with Christ and what he did for us on the cross, because Christ, that's what he said to Peter. Peter said, he said, who am I? And Peter said, well, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, the Son of the living Father. Because Peter knew that, by the understanding that we have, the understanding that Jesus, the man, is the Christ, the knowledge of heaven. He is the everything that existed forever before. You see what I'm saying? He is everything. He is the Alpha and the Omega, like everything. So he's saying that you are the sons of the living Father. So we can go back to heaven through Christ, even though when we came here, we succumbed to sin, because the wages of sin is death. Anyway, so when the Most High gave each nation its heritage, when he divided all of mankind, he laid down the boundaries for peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But the Lord's share was his own people. Jacob was his allotted portion. He found his people in a desert land, in a barren, howling waste. He protected and trained them. He guarded them as the apple of his eye, as an eagle watches over its nest, hovers above its young, spreads its pinions and takes them up, and bears them in its wings. The Lord alone led his people, no alien God at his side. Interesting. He made them ride over the heights of the earth, and fed them on the harvest of the fields. He satisfied them with honey from the crags, and oil from the flinty rock, curds from the cattle, milk from the herds, and fat of lambs, kidneys and Bashan rams and goats, and the finest flour of wheat. And you, his people, drank red wine from the juice of the grape. Jacob ate and was well fed. Jeshurun grew fat and unruly. They grew fat and bloated and sleek. They forsook God their maker, and dishonored the rock of their salvation. That's interesting. I didn't realize that they said the rock of salvation in the Old Testament, because that's who Jesus was. They roused his jealousy with alien gods, lowercase g, and provoked him to anger with abominable practices. They sacrificed to demons that are no gods, to gods who were strangers to them. They consorted with upstart gods from their neighbors, gods whom your fathers did not acknowledge. You forsook the Creator who begot you, and ceased to care for God who brought you to birth. The Lord saw and spurned them. His own sons and daughters provoked his anger. I shall hide my face from them, he said. Let me see what their end will be, for they are a subversive generation, children not to be trusted. They aroused my jealousy with a God of no account. With their worthless idols they provoked me to anger. So you can see that they were worshiping the fallen angels, and he said they're alien gods. What do they call? What do they call the? What do they call the aliens now? They even say they have a show called. They have a show called Ancient Aliens. It's talking about the fallen angels, the archons. Let's see. So we're at an hour and 19 minutes right now. Oh, this part's very interesting. Thank you, Daniel, as well. I appreciate that. Sorry, I haven't been watching the comments tonight, guys. I'm trying to get a lot of content into this one video. Okay. There are 9 palaces in the Garden of Eden, and all of them consist of well-built houses with upper chambers, and the length of the houses is 60 myriads of miles. Each one of them is presided over by 60 myriads of ministering angels. And in each of these houses there are well-arranged canopies made of species of rose and myrtle trees. Every pious man has his place allotted to him according to his deeds, and to their appointed places the ministering angels lead them. There the angels of mercy dance and sing praises before him, as it is mentioned above. In the midst of the Garden of Eden there are 60 myriads of species of trees, the fruit of which the pupils of the sages eat. There the light of the righteous is as the light of the sun, and 60 myriads of ministering angels attend them and feed them, while 60 myriads of angels of mercy sing and dance before them, and they bring spiced wine and the juice of the pomegranates, which they drink with delight. Joshua ben Levi said, I saw in the Garden of Eden 10 companies and well-built houses, each one of which was 12 myriads of miles in length, 110 myriads of miles in breadth, and 100 myriads of miles in height. The first house was opposite the first entrance of the Garden of Eden, wherein there dwelt those proselytes who had converted themselves. The beams thereof were of white glass, and the walls thereof of cedar wood. When I went to measure it, all the proselytes stood up and tried to prevent me, when Obadiah immediately rose and said to them, Happy would ye be if you should be deemed worthy to dwell with such a righteous man. They thereupon allowed me to measure it. The second house corresponding with the second gate. It was built of silver, and its walls of cedar. Therein do the penitent dwell, presided over by Manasseh. The third house is built of gold and silver, wherein are to be found all the good things of heaven and earth, and wherein every kind of food and drink is arranged. In this house Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob dwell, as well as those who died in the wilderness, the generation of the wilderness, all the sons of Jacob and the 12 tribes, with Moses and Aaron presiding over all of them. There also are David and Solomon and Caleb, who is alive, in every generation except those of Absalom and Korah. See, Korah's rebellion, those people have no part in heaven. It's crazy. It's like it parallels right over into heaven. I saw there precious stones, beds of gold and of precious I saw there precious stones, beds of gold and of precious stones, and couches and prepared lights. David exclaimed, These are prepared for my children who dwell in the world from which I have come. I then said to him, Are not all the Israelites here? At this our ancestor Jacob interposed and said, All Israel are my children, and they are not like the other nations of the world, nor are they like the children of Abraham, my grandfather, nor like the children of Esau, my brother. For whoever of these performs good deeds in the world from which thou comest is rewarded there, and afterwards descends into Gehenna. But my children, even the wicked among them, though they were punished, it is only during their lifetime, but after death they inherit the Garden of Eden. The fourth house is built corresponding to the first man, Adam. Its walls are of olive wood, and those who dwell there are those who, though they have been punished in this world, have not rebelled against providence. Why is this house built of olive wood? Because their life had been bitter to them as olive wood. The fifth house is built of onyx stones and of precious stones. Its walls are of gold and of fine gold, and it is perfumed with balsam. Thence the river of Gihon flows forth and illumines the upper world. A fragrance breathes through it, which is more exquisite than the perfume of Lebanon. There are couches of gold and silver covered with blue, purple, and vermilion covers woven together. In this place dwells the Messiah, the son of David, and Elijah the Tishbite, and there is a palanquin of wood of Lebanon which Moses made in the wilderness, i.e. the tabernacle, covered overlaid with silver. Its floor is of gold and its seat of purple, and in the midst of this palanquin sits the Messiah, the son of David, the beloved one of the daughters of Jerusalem. Elijah takes him by his head, and placing him in his bosom, holds him and says, "Bear the judgment, O my master, for the end is near." And every Monday and Thursday and every Sabbath and holy day the patriarchs and the pious and the tribes, Moses and Aaron, David and Solomon, and all the kings of the house of David come to him, and weeping take hold of him and say, "O bear thou the judgment of thy master, for the end is near." Kor and his company and Absalom come also to him every Thursday and ask, "When is the end to come? When wilt thou return and bring us to life?" To which he replies, "Go ye to your ancestors and ask them." They are then abashed and do not go to ask them. When I came before the Messiah, the son of David, he asked and said, "What are my children doing in the captivity?" And I answered, "Every day they await thee in their captivity among the nations of the world, which oppress them." He then lifted up his voice and wept. Just goes like way longer. I don't want to go into that. And then we got the last one right here. Just gonna read this last part. Concerning the prophecy of Christ. This is from the Kebra and the Gast, the history of the hold on a second. Actually, I'm going to read up here first. Now God had commanded the children of Israel, saying, "Ye shall not marry strange women, that ye may not be corrupted by them through their gods, and through the wickedness of their works and the sweetness of their voices, for they make soft the hearts of simple young men. By the sweetness of their gentle voices and by the beauty of their forms, they destroy the wisdom of the foolish man. Who was wiser than Solomon? Yet he was seduced by a woman. Who was more righteous than David? Yet he was seduced by a woman. Who was stronger than Samson? Yet he was seduced by a woman. Who was handsomer than Amnon? Yet he was seduced by Tamar, the daughter of David his father. And Adam was the first creation of God, and he was seduced by Eve his wife. And through that seduction death was created for every created thing. And the seduction of men by women was caused by Eve, for we are all the children of Eve. Now Solomon sinned an exceedingly great sin through the worship of idols, and from being a wise man he became a fool, and his sin is written down in the book of the prophets. And the archbishops who were there answered and said, "Hath God had mercy on Solomon for this error, which is written down as his sin? Yea, God hath had mercy on him, and hath named him and numbered him with the names of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and David his father, in the book of life in heaven. For God is a forgiver of those who have sinned. Come now and consider, which was the greater of the two, the sin of his father David or the sin of his son Solomon? David caused Uriah to be slain in battle by the means of the planned deceit, so that he might take his wife Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon. And he repented, and God had compassion on him. And when he was dying, he advised his son Solomon, saying, Kill Joab as he killed Abner, and kill Shimei, because he cursed me. And he performed the will of his father, and slew them after the death of David his father. And Solomon killed no one except his brother, when he wished to marry the Semawit wife of his father David, whose name was Abishag. And as concerning the error of Solomon, which is written down, I will reveal it to you, even as God has revealed it to me. Now, according to the interpretation of the prophecy, the name Solomon signifieth in the secret speech Christ. And as Solomon built the house of God, so Christ raised up his body and made it into the church. And when he said unto the Jews, Throw down this house, and in 3 days I will build it up again, he spake to them of the house of his body. And as Solomon multiplied wives from alien peoples because of their beauty and winsomeness and desires arose in him in his feigning love for them. So Christ gathered together from alien peoples those who had not the law, but who believed on him. And there were no uncircumcised man in him, and no pagan, and there was no slave and no Jew, and no servant and no free man, but he gathered them all into his heavenly kingdom by his flesh and blood. And in the Song of Solomon himself sang and said, and in the Song of Songs, Solomon himself said and sang, there are 60 mighty men round about the bed of Solomon, all of them trained in war and holding swords, each man with his sword upon his thigh. The number 60 indicated the number of the righteous patriarchs and the prophets and the apostles and the martyrs and the believers and the saints and the monks who have resisted the evil thought and the war of Satan. And the word sword is being interpreted the word of the Scriptures. The word of the Lord cutteth like a straight sharp razor, and in like manner the Scriptures cut from men's hearts the danger caused by lying dreams by night. And the words bed of Solomon are being interpreted the church of Christ. Now this part's interesting. I never read it before. That part right there. The 60 mighty men around the bed of Solomon. The reason that he had 60 men around his bed is because kind of like Aladdin when he was cast out of the kingdom by Jafar and he was cast into the snow. That same thing happened to Solomon in real life. One of the demons, in fact it might have even been the demon that was in the story of Tobit, that demon was transformed into Solomon's figure, and then he cast Solomon away, and Solomon became poor, which is just said in that text. He was like a pauper and he was like begging for food and stuff, and then he crawled his way back to the kingdom, and they finally took the demon and had control over him and cast him out of the kingdom. But after that happened, Solomon had 60 men sleep by his bedside every single night, and that's the reason, is because a demon took his form and took over the kingdom for a short amount of time and was ruling over Israel in Solomon's stead. I forget what book that's in, but it's on YouTube. I listened to the audio version of it before. But I was gonna do conversations all about the fallen angels tonight. I feel like I did a pretty decent job of sharing some texts that speak of the fallen angels and what they did, especially one of the texts I was reading that talked about like what they did and how they they basically polluted like animals, plants, everything that was on the earth, and it just got so bad. And the Lord said that the times that are coming will be worse than have ever been on the earth before. So it's going to be a pretty awful place to live. But as you also heard, and one of the reasons I read half about the fallen angels and half about the Lord, is so you can see the stark contrast between what you get when you side with Satan and what you get when you side with Christ. And yeah, it might suck being here, being tortured by evil men or situations or whatever you go through on this earth, but it's far greater to be able to praise the Lord in his kingdom someday for what you suffer here on earth. And especially the fact you don't have to, once this life's over, you don't have to go to be tortured by the demons like most of these people are going to be going to hell, and they're going to be tortured by demons. And that's our job. Our job is to preach the gospel, tell people about the things that I'm talking about right now, and say, hey, listen, a lot of the stuff that they've done to the Word of God, they just gave it a bad rap, and they translated it wrong, and Jesus is the Son of God. God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. They are three and they are one, and Jesus is the only way to get back to your home. Jesus is the only answer. And if you could just see what he's done for us, if you could just begin to try and see what Jesus Christ has done for us, then you're just going to want to have compassion on your fellow man, because you're not going to want anyone to suffer and go to hell. You're not going to want people to be conquered by their sins that the Lord thinks are abominations. You're not going to, it's like, when you think about like the people that are mean to you and you think about them like as your enemies and stuff like that, I don't know anyone that I don't like and like so much that I would want them to be tortured by demons. There's no person alive right now that has done something to me that has been so bad that I would want them to be tortured by demons. And if I have to let certain people hurt me, torture me, kill me, because I say things that are true, then I'm okay with that, because I'm not here for me. I'm here for them. I'm here, I do have my mission to accomplish a certain, thing in my life, but if you're helping others and you care about other people more than yourself, like no greater thing that someone can do than to give their life for someone else. That's what we should be doing, is just giving our life every single day for other people. And sometimes we get beat down by like our family or our closest friends or people that are closest to us, and we kind of just got to separate a little bit from people that are mad because you don't want to be a part of their pagan rituals anymore, or you don't want to be you don't want to be part of the negativity that they bring, because Jesus said it, a doctor can't heal the members of his own city, or whatever, however the quote goes. You can't fix your home. Somebody else is going to have to fix your parents and your family. You really can't do it. If you're trying to change the pagan ways of your family, the Christmas and the Easter and the worldliness, and like it's just like a mentality. It's like a mentality. It's like this sick, evil, twisted trick that the devil has blindfolded and put like this slumber over everybody's eyes, and they just can't see it. They just can't see the messages that Jeremiah was preaching, talking about they go up in the forest and the mountains and cut down a tree and put it in their house and hang it up with string and silver and gold. That's a Christmas tree. It's like how could you not see that that's a Christmas tree? So why was he talking about Christmas trees back then? Because he was talking about the paganism that was back then, which is like Saturnalia and all these other weird like the Yule holidays and stuff like that. And if that stuff represents paganism, that's everything I just read is talking about the fact that God doesn't like idol worship and paganism. And Christmas trees are part of that. I hate to say that, because people start to say, "Oh, you're legalistic," and they're like, I had a Christmas tree every year. Like, we had a huge sunroom at my house. We had a 15-foot Christmas tree every year of my life. I love getting Christmas presents. I was the most, Christmas gung-ho person there was. Like, it's not easy for me to say it's pagan. I just spit in truth. It's the truth. I stand with Jesus Christ. You want to put me over here by myself with Christ? I'll be by myself with Christ. I don't care who likes it. You know what I mean? I don't care. I just don't care anymore. My whole life I feel like everything was like, oh, no, don't say that. You're going to upset the apple cart. I don't care. I just don't care. And the only thing that I ever want to talk about whenever I go anywhere, spend time with my family and stuff like that, is Jesus Christ. It's just the way it is. I just can't help it. I don't have anything else to talk about. There's nothing that matters. Nothing in this world matters anymore. Never did, except Jesus Christ. That's it. I just don't know what else to say about it. I mean, for real. Like, that's a lot of knowledge to put in your head, and that's not even like the tip of the iceberg of the things that Jesus has written down over the course of history through men, so that they could tell us how to live the right way. You know what I'm saying? And just nobody cares. It's sad to see people You know, it's just sad to see people so quick, like like just laying down for the narrative, laying down for the satanic narrative, so they can control you and put a microchip in your hand or your forehead. Because in their own words, in the Rockefellers' own words, that's the end game. That's what they want. And yeah, if there's like one thing that I could give you as advice, this is so hard for me to like say or think or anything. It's just the one thing I could say right now is just to find peace in the Lord. Find peace in the Lord, and if that means that you have to like just like be alone with your like super tight knit, just you and your like wife or your husband or your kids or whatever right now, because other people are starting to get a little wacky, you know what I'm saying? Just do that, you know. Don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of that, you know. I say that a lot, but like Enoch spent a lot of time alone. He would go like spend time with men for like a few weeks, go away, and then he'd like stay away for a longer period of time because he was always with God. Don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of just being alone with the Lord. Sometimes you might notice you go spend time with like family and friends and you love them and they're like awesome people and they're fun to hang out with. And then you start to realize, oh man, I've been slipping on this and this and this. And you think about why you've been slipping on this and that. And it's because you spend time with the people that don't live the way you do. They don't read the gospel like you do. They don't, you know, they don't fast and pray all day. And I mean, like, I'm not talking about not eating something, which I'm not that great at. I'm saying, like, spiritually fast, like fasting from the world, like not putting the garbage of this world into your mind, meditating on the Lord instead of like even like 2-minute commercials. I mean, it's always about sex or, you know, stupid crap, or like a woman making a husband look like an idiot. You know, so many commercials are about that. Like, honey, you're so dumb. Like, no, the man is supposed to be the head of the household. And I'm not like a fascist about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not nuts about it. Like, me and Jackie have like a really healthy, awesome marriage, in my opinion. And it's just like, you know, I say what goes, and then like, but like I can't even like think about making decisions without my helpmate. It's just like stupid, you know. Just don't be afraid of having like that healthy relationship with like your spouse, like the way God wanted it to be, you know. It's just a fact. It's just a fact that Eve messed up. Half the time, women make smarter decisions than me. You know what I'm saying? You know, more than half the time, my wife, like, she thinks like clear, but sometimes, like, you know, I have to be the one to make that final decision. I don't know why it works that way. It's just the way God intended it to be. And they're always making fun of that on TV. It just kind of ticks me off. Kind of ticks me off that they changed, like, ABC Family to Freeform now, and all it is like gay crap. All it is like gay crap all the time. It's all gay shows, gay flags, Freeform. Like, what do you mean freeform? Oh, we're not made in the image of God? Is that what you're trying to say by saying freeform? You know what I mean? And just one other thing I want to say before I go tonight, unless anybody has any questions you want to throw in the chat before we leave, I'll stay on for like 5 more minutes, just because I didn't get to talk a lot tonight, but to you guys I didn't, but I guess the one thing that I want to say is, you know, me and Daniel talk about all the things going on in the world a lot. We haven't talked a little bit lately because I've been working a lot, but you know, we talk about all the things that you hear about there in the world, like how they relate, like, you know, flat Earth and prophecy and all the different things. And but the one thing I want to say is that, so I feel like now more than ever, not specific. This isn't specifically towards one person or like one person I heard or anything like that. Just in a general sense. Like I still love Rob Skiba, I still love Zen Garcia, I still love, Robert Farrell. It's nothing like that. It's just like, as we might lose technology if there's an EMP, or if we lose to the fact like that we could talk to each other and things like that. I would just encourage all of you, and not that I need to, because I know you're all doing this anyway, but just like spend more time praying to God, and like making sure that you heard him clearly and what he wants you to do clearly, because even some of the like trusted people that I know, and I almost always agree with what they say, like 100%. I'm noticing that like there might be like two people, and it's not, these are who I'm talking about right now is not Rob Skiban, and it's not Zen, and it's not Robert Farrell, just like other people. Some of the things that they say are conflicting with what the other person is saying, and it's like sometimes in the Bible there'd be prophets of Israel, and some of them would have things they were saying that weren't true, and there was like one person like Jeremiah that had the right info, or one person like Isaiah that had the right info. Kind of like that, not on that deep of a level, but I'm just saying, before anybody makes a move, before you do anything, before you make the mistake that Joshua made, who was one of the greatest men in the Bible, brought down the walls of Jericho and everything, and was with Moses as like his right-hand man, before you make any decisions, don't make the mistake Joshua made. Pray to the Lord and ask him for guidance, and just make sure that you listen to him, not what you think he said according to what somebody else said, but go directly to the source. And the best way to do that is just to have a humble heart, just to talk to him like with humility, and know that he's God, so he knows what he's doing. So that's all I gotta say for tonight, guys. I hope that was a good show for everybody, and that you learned a lot. I tried to put different excerpts from different books that had to do with like either a super interesting thing or directly related to the fallen angels and the giants and the history of that, because there is prophecy that says that Jesus Christ would strike the head of the serpent, and the head of the serpent was the fallen angels, because Goliath's head was in the ground, and that prophecy is the war that we're fighting right now. That's still the war. This is still a race, and I just hope that you guys run it good. So, God bless you guys. Hope you have a great week, and thank you for coming tonight. I'm just going to stay on for like 2 more minutes in case anybody has any questions. If you do have questions, please post them in the chat, and I'll be sure to answer them as soon as I can. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Oh dang, I forgot. Sorry, I forgot to mail out the book for the person that won it. If you're on the video tonight, or if you hear this later, I have your email still, and I will mail it to you. Totally forgot about that, sorry. I donated the money before I did that show, but I just forgot to send the book to you. Sorry about that. I have it. And I don't think if there's anything else. Oh, if anybody has any suggestions for what they want to hear on the next show, or any topics of discussion, I know there was some other topics that wanted to be discussed besides the fallen angels, but toddler wrangling is okay. Thank you, Dorothy, for coming tonight. I appreciate it. No worries. Childcare is a very difficult thing at this time. I have many people on my meetings for work that have children that are jumping off the walls on video chat. Yeah, I've heard about that comment a second ago. I heard a lot of people say that third Enoch is corrupted, but to be honest, the more I read it, the more I don't have any problems with it. Like a lot of the stuff that it says, like for instance, in that book of the angels I was reading at the beginning of the show, it says that they have a problem. The reason that original scholars had problems with the third Enoch is because there's like some scene where God has all these angels that are singing praises to him, and one of them, like a few of the angels, go off key while they're singing, and he immediately grabs them, like somehow, and they are cast below the throne into like melting lava or something like that. But when I first read it, I was like, whoa, I was like, that's not cool. And then like, but then it explains it like, number one, there can't be any mistakes in the presence of the almighty righteousness of God. Totally makes sense. Number two, it's almost like where he puts them under his throne, like the way that they're carrying him, it's almost like he took them from a blessing into a blessing. It's like a blessing in disguise, but you can't understand it because we're using our mortal brains, if that makes any sense. But I mean, you know, anybody can read whatever they want and think whatever they want and do whatever they want. You know, it's your life. If you think third Enoch is not cool to read, don't read it. You know, do whatever makes you happy. You know, I'm never gonna be the type of person to be like, oh, but unless it's like something satanic or whatever. You know, if it's something that, you know, is something that's been dug up and it speaks, you know, I'll read it and then I'll make a judgment call after. But it's the epitome of stupidity to make a judgment call on something before you have actually investigated the topic at hand. So I always try to investigate something before I make a statement. That's why I read these things on this channel, so not so that you can hear it, the audio or not, none of that. The reason I read on my channel is so that you can hear what the texts say and then go and further study it for yourself. Because if you hear a paragraph and it sounds sketchy or it sounds like something that doesn't mesh well with your spirit, which happens to me all the time, I ponder it, I think about it, I try to find matches for it, I try to find a second or a third witness in other scripture. Usually I try to go to either the Targum or the King James Bible and try to see if there's a match for it. If I don't find a match, I don't say that it's actually proven to be scripture or not. But first, second, and third Enoch do match many different things that I've read historically and biblically. So, you know, what I just read to you a minute ago, and one of the reasons I did this video in the first place is so you could see that they took all the mentions of angels out of the Bible. Almost all the mentions of our current faith, the things that we believe in, the power of the angels that are God's messengers and God's helpers and God's army, the people that are in charge of the you know, the people that are in charge of the modern day church from the beginning to now, they've taken out the knowledge of the very things that we call our religion. Took it out. Very limited info on the angels in the actual canon itself. And that's from that book I just read. It's not even in the scripture that it says that. You know, they just like historically found that out. So if they did that, and realistically we have 3 books of Enoch, and there was 365 books of Enoch probably in the Catholic catacomb library things, you know, hidden away from mankind. If we only got 3 of them, we better dissect the 3 very carefully to see if they're right or wrong before we say they're right or wrong. And I'm not saying that to you, I'm saying that to somebody else who used to be like somebody that was kind of coming out with a lot of flat earth videos and stuff like that. What's the name of it? D13 Watchmen or something like that. He used to be like so like really against Zen Garcia and stuff like that, saying even Second Enoch was evil and all this stuff, and First Enoch is questionable. First Enoch and Second Enoch are not even close to questionable. Third Enoch, yeah, I can understand why someone would say that, but I mean, a lot of the stuff it's talking about is angelic stuff, and Jesus even said to his disciples, if you can't understand earthly stuff, how in the heck can I tell you anything about heaven? I can't tell you anything about heaven if you can't understand earthly stuff, and nobody understands earthly stuff, so how am I going to tell you heavenly stuff? That's why he's like, like, you think I can tell you this? That's what Jesus is like saying. You think I could tell you this? You can't even understand the regular Bible. I don't know what my regular Bible is, but yeah, okay. So, basic instructions before leaving Earth. Basic, advanced. Like, seriously, like nobody that goes to church currently even has a clue about this. Never mind the additional books that are in this that they removed. Then you add that to it, and that's not even all of it. That's not even close. It's not even close. So I mean, literally gotta study. Really gotta study, and like, honestly, like, unless Jesus came down himself and told me, don't read Third Enoch. There's a lot of good content in there, like a ton of it. There's nothing in it that I'm like, nah, I don't believe that. Like, just for instance, in Third Enoch, what does it say? Third Enoch says, when God steps from his throne to his chariot, he looks through the entirety of 144,000 worlds. There's nothing bad about that. Says that there's one angel in heaven that the distance from his feet to his head is the traveling distance of a man traveling for 500 years. That's pretty tall. Says that the angel Metatron, like the rabbi that went to heaven to make the account of the book of Third Enoch so that he could write it down and give it to us, he saw Metatron, and he had so much power and glory and might and things like that in heaven that he thought there was two gods. So he said it out loud, and a giant angel came and whipped Enoch, being the angel Metatron. He whipped him. So to show you, there's only one Yahuwah. It makes perfect sense to me. The thing I told you a second ago about the choir of angels, they screwed up when they were singing. They're like, ah, and then they got kicked out and put down underneath the throne, and then they were carrying the throne. That makes sense to me too. I mean, you can't be in the presence of God. You're going to be screwing up while you're singing. It's just a fact. He's pure righteousness. I mean, most people can't even look at him. I think, like, one of the patriarchs or something, they had to have their face cooled by an angel of ice by blowing on their face, because if they didn't, it would like kill the people around them or so. I think it was Enoch. Couldn't even see him, like the people, because his face was so on fire like hot coals from seeing God's presence, that if he didn't cool his face, he wouldn't be able to go back to earth. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? These are things that are like beyond our realm. Yeah, Daniel, I'm not a great singer anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely not joining the choir either. But yeah, just things like that, guys. Like they're things that we don't understand. You know, there's a whole realm in heaven that it's probably going to take an eon just to, be a freshman in heaven. You know what I mean? It's just going to be that way. Or maybe we'll have immediate, infinite knowledge, and the Lord will just share His wisdom with us, so we're not left in the dark, so to speak, on all the topics that He would want us to know. I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm excited. I'm much more excited about heaven than I am about staying here. That's for sure. And it's not because it's collapsing. I felt this way when things were great. To be honest, I'm kind of relieved that things are starting, because I was starting to be like, man, and how much longer is this going to wait for? Like, can we just get going? Like, I feel like I've been sitting with my bags packed for like, a long time, and I just want to get the show on the road. You know what I mean? Just want to get there. Yeah, I got a mountain to climb. All right, let's pack it up and let's get climbing, because I want to go to heaven. That's how I feel. So, anyways, guys, thank you for coming tonight. I hope it was a great show. Let's end in prayer, and hope everybody has a great week. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your Son, Jesus, that suffered so much for mankind. I thank you that you sent him to us, and I thank you that he was chosen to be the one that would take care of every human being that has ever lived, if they would just choose him to be their Savior. And I just pray that you'll protect each and every person listening, either now or later. Cover us all with your blood, Lord, and keep us safe. Protect us from all the wiles of the devil. And I pray that more people might realize it's true, and that there are supernatural things that happen each and every day. I pray that each man, woman, and child that ever hears this message might get down on their knees and ask to be forgiven for their sins, and that they might choose to be baptized whenever they can and wherever they can, and by whatever means that they can, so that they might be fulfilling the will of the Lord. I don't talk about that very often, Lord, but I just pray that you guide each and every one of us into the steps that you've laid down for us to follow through your gospel. And I pray that we all might think about you more and more each day before you come, Lord, so we can prepare our hearts and our minds for the righteousness that you've laid out for us in our future, God. Please let us be the light in the darkness, Lord, in your name. Amen. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care, guys.